Hi everybody! I created this short video to express my thanks to all the people who watch this channel, as we recently crossed the boundary of 1000 subscribers. I must say that that's a real achievement, and I never expected the channel to attract so many chess enthusiasts, but of course I'm delighted that it happened. So thanks a lot again. And to celebrate this event a bit more, I decided to make a commented video that would be inspired by one of the articles you can find on my chess blog. So, what is this video about? I was always a big fan of unusual or half-forgotten chess openings, so let's take a look at one of them. In fact, the opening itself is pretty common. It's a Scotch Game, an opening that used to be popular in the 19th century and regained its popularity in the last century thanks to grandmasters like Garry Kasparov or Jan Timman. Let's make the moves that define the Scotch Game. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, now d4, capture and capture. Okay. But of course, if you decide to play it, you should be ready for certain unusual lines that the opponent can choose to force you to think more creatively. One of these lines is the Steinitz variation. This one. It looks a bit strange, doesn't it? I think that every chess book for beginners discourages players from making early strikes with the queen, as it can be easily attacked by the opponent's pieces, losing a precious tempo as a result. But in this case, the surprise queen strike can cause troubles if not met with a proper response. By the way, this isn't just a theoretical study. I am in fact analyzing a really played online game, and it happened about 9 years ago. However, since the white player didn't always make the best moves, I will suggest the right way to keep the advantage as well. Okay, so as I mentioned, the Steinitz variation of the Scotch Game, an early queen charge to the opponent's half of the board can be dangerous if the player doesn't know the correct counterplay. In this case, the e-pawn is under attack, so the best course to play would be to protect it. Okay, let's move the knight to c3. This is the recommended follow-up if you wish to avoid complications after playing the so-called Horwitz line. Let me show you. So the alternative would be this. Sometimes players are tempted to punish the opponent for leaving the square c7 unprotected and attacking it immediately. The following line is called the Horwitz attack and usually leads to a double-edged situation where both parties focus on freeing their straight knights. So let me show you. No, this one. The knight to b5, so it directly attacks c7. And of course, black has another, I would say, counter-attack because they can move the bishop to c5. And now let's see, the weak point f2 is under attack of both bishop and the queen, so there is an imminent checkmate threat. So white needs to counter that first. Let's do it by moving the queen to f3, which is a pretty good move because the queen cannot be easily attacked here, and of course there is still a way to attack the black's weak point f7 later. And now black decides to do a double strike, like it attacks the queen and the knight at the same time. So they would probably expect white to capture the knight to counter that, but instead white can do this, making a fork on the king and the rook and leaving the queen unprotected. But of course black is required to resolve the check first, so they will move the king to d8, and now it's necessary to resolve the queen situation. So let's move the queen to f4, And black continues with their own fork to c2. Okay, this and this. So it seems that both players follow the same plan, and of course white is in check, so they need to move the king, and now black follows with exchanging the queens, of course because their own queen was unprotected. Now when the queens are gone, the knights can finish the original plan and capture one rook, second rook, and black just decided to block the bishop from protecting this square, which could have been used as an escape route for the knight. Alright, but of course this is, I would say, sharp situation, and both players would have a problem to free their knights. So if you prefer to play less aggressively, let's just make this more usual move, and now black can do this. This is called the modern defense. Black actually looks pretty aggressive, as the bishop is their second piece. They manage to get behind the enemy lines, this one and this one. But white has, I would say, a surprise response to that. They can play their bishop to e2. What happened? Despite the proximity of the black queen, the strongest line is to prepare the castling kingside. Of course, there could have been an alternative like capturing this knight, but black would gain some sort of initiative after giving a check on e4, capturing the pawn, and white needs to counter that, and then they recapture the knight, and let's play, for example, castling as intended, but the queen remains here, still endangering the queen's camp. And of course, if white decides to occupy the e-file to threaten with this discovered check, moving the bishop, it can be easily countered like this. And I would say that the position is pretty even, so white just lost their advantage, which they have as the player who starts the game. So definitely this move is recommended. And now what can happen? Black is obviously after the e4 pawn, so they will continue with capturing the knight with a check. And now after solving this check, they just capture the pawn. So black gained a small material advantage, but I would say that the positional advantage of white is just more than an adequate compensation. Let's see how the game can continue. So, yeah, definitely, castling is the right course of action, and now black played knight to f6. I mark this move with a question mark as a weak move, because it is dangerous to keep the queen on the half-open e-file, as we'll see in a while. And white decided to play the bishop to d3 to open the file with the tempo, as the queen is under attack. This is a good move, but it would be even better to move the bishop to f3, because the queen is now unable to retreat to d5, so it will be dragged away from the queen side, which then becomes very vulnerable. But let's continue with the game as it was actually played. So black moved here, which wasn't the best move at all, because now white can follow with checking by the rook over the e-file, and black in fact doesn't have a good move here. They can simply just resolve the check by moving the knight here, but then white would continue with this move, endangering this weak point again, and there is basically not much black can do to just protect it. So in fact they moved the king, let me just put it back to the check situation, they put the king to d8, And now white can simply follow up with attacking the queen with a tempo again, so the queen has to move to h4, which was in fact a mistake. Now white can do this. This is a double strike against the queen and the g-pawn, and there is basically nothing black can do to protect that. So they decided to move the queen to the queen side, where it can feel a bit more safe, as there are more squares to retreat to. Now, of course, white captured the g-pawn, and I think that black decided to move the rook here to attack the knight, which is in fact the losing move, because now when white moves the bishop to g5, it pinned the knight like this. It cannot move, and black doesn't have a way to protect it, so the knight is actually lost. What happens if black decides to capture this knight? Let's see. So capture, and now of course, since the knight is not protected, we can capture it with a check, so winning the rook as a bonus. But instead we can in fact checkmate the opponent in a few moves. Let's follow with capturing the knight. Now there is only a first move here. We will make a discovered check. So there is again a first move only here. And now there is a nice combination. Let's sacrifice the rook, because after that we can move the queen to the same file and finally deliver the checkmate. So to e8, black is forced to capture it, and now do this. Queen to e2 or e1, both moves lead to the same situation. Black is forced to retreat, and the final checkmate. Okay, so I hope you liked that. As I mentioned, this is the first commented video, so I decided just to stop it right here, and next time I would like to follow with something maybe more interesting or longer, but definitely something about the chess problems and the chess at all. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.